All right, folks. Well, thanks again for tuning in this week. I am excited because this is something I've personally been wondering about and wanted to learn more information about myself. So I'm excited to gather more information. We have Diane Duncan and Pastor DJ Reed in here with the Severe Weather Network of Livingston County. Folks, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
So I'm just going to jump right in because, again, we were off air here and I was having some questions about, I knew there's something, but what is that something? So tell me about what you guys are and what you do, because as much as the name leads into what you do, I think there's more behind this name. So tell me and tell all the folks out there exactly what it is that we're doing, that you guys are doing for our community here.
So we usually say that the Severe Weather Network, while its name tends to be a little bit confusing, it is really a coalition of churches and organizations that have decided to come together to provide shelter for people who are who need a place to stay during the coldest winter months of the year. And so we operate, this year we'll be operating between December the 1st and April 19th at Chilson Hills Church there in between Brighton and Howell, and we'll be providing nightly shelter for people there.
All right, so between December and April, for lack of better terms, or I heard you say it's a homeless shelter. It's for folks in Livingston County who need shelter during those cold months because, again, the winters are brutal here. So I've always wondered that myself, right? And we were talking about this. Our old office was in Howell. We were across from the old court office, and for those of you out there who drive by that in the winter months, there's always the stick figures that are out there.
Yeah.
And those represent, tell us what those represent, because I think that gives us a good idea of really, again, I don't want to say that we're not aware of this. I think a lot of us are, but there are people here that are homeless in our community that we just may not see them every day, right?
Yes, and I think for Livingston County, the homeless population looks very different here than it does in our neighboring counties. So, for instance, you don't see homeless people sleeping in our storefronts. You don't see them walking down the street pushing a cart. Where they're at is they're sleeping in their cars in 24-hour parking lots of stores that are open 24 hours and in their cars. They are in tent cities or tent camps that you just don't know where they're at. And this is throughout the county. This isn't in one specific area of the county. This is throughout the county. The other piece of this is there are some people that just simply, there's reasons behind their homelessness that you wouldn't think. For example, a medical condition where it drained their savings.
Yes.
A mental illness. That's a big, big factor in the homeless population that we have seen, running this program. So it is very different. And one of the things that we're trying to do now, and I think we've done a really good job of this in the last couple of years, is to bring the awareness out to the members of the community to say, this is here, it is happening, and there is not a permanent shelter year-round here for these people. And so how people typically do get shelter when our center is not open is through service agencies, nonprofit service agencies here in the county, and some government-funded agencies. But what happens is, after a certain amount of time, those agencies run out of funding, and there is no more funding. And so those agencies would typically put a person up in a motel here in the county.
Okay.
But that typically only lasts for maybe 7 days if they're lucky. And so last year, the nonprofit agencies, they ran out of funds in early January. So we truly are the only shelter available for adult men and women during those winter months.
And I mean, let's kind of tie into that for those folks out there listening. Is there a cost for your guys' services?
There is not a cost to our guests.
Right.
No.
So your guest, I think that's a big one to point out. That's a big separating factor, right? If somebody goes to one of these nonprofits, and again, I don't know a lot about this, but I hate to assume, but there's probably some qualifications, some paperwork, some things that we have to fill out if there's going to be quote unquote funding coming from these nonprofits, right? That they have to go through and qualify all of these things. And then they only get it for a certain period of time. It sounds like you guys are uniquely different in the sense of you're able to provide a place for people between the coldest months, right? Mm-hmm. A little bit more of an open door policy. Tell me really how and why this got started for both of you.
So probably about, I don't know when it really started, but that was 6 years ago. But really, before that, Salvation Army had a program called the REACH program, REACH program was a rotating shelter that basically all the churches would take a week, 2 weeks, and they would take people in during that time. The Salvation Army eventually determined that they discontinued that program.
Okay.
And so for a couple years, there wasn't anything that was going on. So about 6 years ago, Oakland County and Livingston County, Oakland and Livingston Human Services, basically approached myself and a couple other pastors in the area and said, we need to get something started again. We need to start sheltering people, recognizing that sheltering is a key component to helping people just get housed. At least there needs to be a temporary place where people are housed. So we then started getting together other churches to do that. We started off again doing the old style where we were doing a rotating shelter, but we did it with fewer churches.
Okay.
And then we started off, I think, doing 6 weeks the first year, then 8 weeks, then 12 weeks, then 16 weeks, and now we're up to 20 weeks that we're going to be operational this year.
That's awesome.
And the difference this year is we have a permanent place this year, so we will not be transitioning this year, which is wonderful. So Chilson Hills and Severe Weather Network have gone into an agreement, and we have a lease, and we will be housing and having the shelter there this year.
How much room do we have there?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have a large room and then side rooms that are off the side. So imagine, I don't know, probably 50, 60 yards,
Okay.
across, the length, and then you've got all these just different side rooms that are there. So it's a nice kind of almost isolated, kind of enclosed
Okay.
area.
So walk us through out there for everybody listening. You guys are in the business of helping people, right? Of folks in our community that again, sometimes we're not seeing it, right? We're not seeing the shopping carts go down the road.
Right.
We're not seeing quote unquote, we've heard about it out in West, called Tent City, where there's all these people that live together and they're homeless or they're living under the viaducts and stuff like that. Like I'm driving around Brighton and I don't see it, right? And again, it's not that I'm looking. Even if you're looking for it, you don't see, nothing jumps out to you that says, hey, there's a huge need here. But I myself, and I've shared this a lot, is there has to be a need for it. It's not like we're secluded to this homelessness thing. So you guys are in the business of helping people. Walk us through, because I know there's a great tie-in here with an organization I love, Love Inc.
Mm-hmm.
Worked a lot with them and with Kathy and everybody over there. Walk us through how you guys help people when they come through your doors. What does that look like?
Yeah.
Well, so the initial registration process, we partner with the Oakland Livingston Human Services Agency. So when somebody is homeless, they can contact any nonprofit service agency in our county who will direct them to OLSA, stands for Oakland Livingston Human Services Agency, first. And then what OLSA does is they do what we call an intake process. So they talk to this particular individual, find out what their circumstances are, and then at that point, they start the process to network these individuals out to the different service agencies. At the same time, they're registering them for our center.
Okay.
So a guest that comes through OLSA first, registers with OLSA first, then if they need transportation, we will pick them up, because we do provide transportation to and from the center. We will pick them up from a designated pickup point, bring them to the center. We open the center at 6 o'clock in the evening. They come in, they register, they sign in. If we'll have them do paperwork if it's their first time and introduce them and take them around the center and get them all settled. We have volunteers that do all of the work at the center. So that we have check-in volunteers. We have people that prepare meals, come in and serve the meal. And so they'll have a dinner, and if they need to take showers.
So where's all this taking place at?
Right there at Chilson Hills at the Severe Weather
That's what
Center.
I wanted to make sure.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. And then in the evening, typically the lights are turned out at 10:30, and we have overnight chaperones that stay. And then in the morning at 6 a.m. is their wake-up call, and by 7 a.m. we have a transportation bus ready for them to take them back either to wherever the designated drop-off point is.
Okay.
So that's basically a quick
Sure. An abbreviated
rundown.
version of what's going on.
Right, now,
Okay.
now I will tell you that we do accept guests that are brought in from the law enforcement and
Okay.
from EMS.
Okay.
And also we have a partnership with Stepping Stones Engagement Center as well. So we will permit those guests to come in without registering through OLSA first.
Okay.
They can spend that first night, but then they will
They're going to
register the following
transportation,
day.
get there, and get all this
Yes,
stuff moving
yep.
forward. No, that makes absolute
Yep.
sense. Well, and again, there's probably hundreds of these, but I always love to hear success stories. I'm sure you both probably have a few.
Boy.
What one sticks out to you? Either one of you. What do you sticks out of knowing that there's something that where we started to a success of where things are at now?
You want to talk about Regina? Go ahead.
So Regina was one of our guests, and I will tell you that last year of the 40 guests that we had, 7 of them were over 65 years of age.
Wow.
Regina being one of them.
Yeah.
And so Regina had some issues that caused her to go into homelessness. And I don't know that I can be very specific about that.
I don't know. Yeah.
But at any rate, so she stayed with us. She was one of our first guests. She stayed with us through April, and through the work of our board members and through the work of service agencies, nonprofit agencies, and some community members that helped her out, excuse me, she was able to transition into housing.
That's awesome.
So, and she's happy, and she just actually was at one of our first fundraisers, and she shared her story with the attendees at the fundraiser. So she was a great example.
Yeah.
Another great example is a gal that she was actually driving her car from Grand Rapids through Livingston County to go to Macomb County, and she got in an accident, and she couldn't afford to have her car fixed. She was homeless. All her personal belongings were in there. So there was a organization or a business in Howell that let her keep her car there. Just literally pushed her car up out of the road and put it there and let her keep it there. So then she came to us and stayed with us, but we were able to work with her to get her help to get employment over in Macomb County, as well as we worked across county lines with the Department of Health and Human Services to find her some housing. We utilize funds that have been donated to us to help with security deposits and insurance. We did that for both Regina and for this other gal. And then we had a local company, Corrigan Oil, actually their towing company, complimentary, towed her car over to Macomb County, and parked it at her apartment. And we were going to help her fix her car, and she just decided, nope, I'm going to do this on my own. I have a job out there now, and I'll just do it piece by piece. But she was a great example of just.
Well, and that's what I love. You know, for everybody listening, I mean, this isn't a situation where it's just come and stay, and then we'll see you again next week, and then we'll be open next year, and we're not pacifying the situation, band-aids it, right? Because I hate to say it, we see a lot of the band-aids that are put onto things. Sounds like you guys are jumping in and saying, and again, I love to reference Love Inc. because I first got started in a lot of things in this community through Love Inc. because I loved the vision that they had of, okay, we're going to understand the situation, just like you guys are going to understand the situation, what resources are out there, because you know a lot more than somebody who's out there that's homeless that may not even have an idea that these things exist. So here's all of your resources, here's all the things, here's what we can then do, and you're really walking them through from where they're at to where they need to be.
Yeah, the evolution of this program has been really fascinating because I think we started off with this idea that we were just going to provide shelter. Let's just give them food, and then let's just get them out the door, and that's going to be fine. And then we started realizing, the more we were into this, we were saying, there's this tremendous gap between the people that we are serving and the resources that we serve. So the best part of our identity is the network part of our title.
Okay,
the fact that we are connecting people to resources, because that's what we have found is that the great gap in our county is not necessarily that there isn't enough, because there is a lot. I mean, there's a lot of things that are here, and there's a lot of resources there. It's the fact that people struggle to get from one resource to another, or they struggle getting connected at all. And so, I mean, I think you know this. I mean, you know that advancing or being promoted or growing or just advancing in life in general requires being networked with people.
Yes.
And so what's happening is that we're getting together with people, and we're talking and we're developing these relationships with their guests, and we're saying, hey, you know what? Don't give up on this. Let me get you in touch with somebody else. And every single one of our residents, I think that's probably our success story, is the fact that every single one of our guests is getting connected to someone else beyond what we can offer.
And
it's a cool thing.
And the really interesting part of this is sometimes the connections are our volunteers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we have 400 trained volunteers
Wow.
that support our center during those winter months.
I think that was on the low side too. I think we could probably go higher than that, but yeah, it's at least 400.
Yeah.
So.
That's phenomenal.
And so some of the connections that have been made are through the volunteers. They know somebody, or they're connected somewhere, or, I mean, it's just miraculous how things.
It is. So, I think that there's two people that we could speak to right now, or two groups, right? There's ones out there that need help, right? Or they know someone that needs help. How do they get in touch with you? How do they just show up? What do we do?
So we have, first of all, we have a website.
Okay.
It's livingstonswn.org.
Okay.
And there's all the information on there on how to reach us, but we're available by phone, by email. The Livingston County United Way, or the United Way in the state of Michigan, has a 211 program. If they were to call the 211 program, they would be referred to OLSA first,
Okay.
but ultimately when we're open, they would be referred to us. So, any of those means,
Okay.
all of the EMS people, the local law enforcement know about us
Okay.
and are aware that the timeframe that we are open
Okay.
But our primary partner really is also.
is OLSA
Yeah.
and the Salvation Army as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So those are the folks out there that are, or someone, or you are looking for possibility of shelter between December and April. Those are great ways to get in touch. Now, everybody out there that's listening right now that says this is something I would love to let's talk about this. How do we give back for us that are in the community that are saying, okay, this is that time, and again, we want to get out, and how can we help? How can other people out there that are listening, how can they help? How can they volunteer financially? What does that look like for you guys?
Sure. Website again is the
Okay.
place to start. There's a couple different ways. You could, first of all, you can volunteer, and you can there are several different volunteer roles that we have for people to participate. So you could volunteer by bringing a meal on one of the evenings. You could volunteer by being someone who helps check people in. You can volunteer by being someone who does an overnight. Who stays overnight.
Okay.
So you can also help with just getting the word out. You can tell if you go to a church or you're affiliated with a church, talk to your pastor or your priest about that, and just say, hey, listen, what do you know about this? The other thing is that if you're a part of an organization, to talk to your leadership about potentially getting involved with us. You can donate online to our organization. Most of our funds come from private donations, and so that's what we rely on that too. So yeah, those are some ways. What else am I missing?
Well, and I think it's important, especially for organizations. This would be an excellent opportunity for team building amongst.
So I want to dig in a little deep to that, because that's something I'm very much interested in. In our organization, we pick an organization every single month, and one of our staff members gets involved, and we really lead from the middle. So let's talk to those folks out there. So if Foguth Financial Group says, hey, we'd love to be able to come and do something with you guys, what would that look like? Because I'm sure there's other business owners out there, there's other. Hey, look, if you're an employee, approach your company and say, hey, I want to do this. What does that look like?
Well,
Give
right.
an example of
Sure.
maybe the way one happened. Yeah.
So in years past, it's been mostly churches
Sure.
that have provided their volunteers, right? So they'll typically take a week, they'll reserve a week,
Okay.
and then they have a team coordinator at their church who recruits the volunteers for the week. We need 8 volunteers a night to run the center.
And what time is this from?
So it would be from 5:45 in the evening until 9:45, and those would be your check-in people,
Okay.
your meal servers, and then from 9:45 until 7 a.m. would be the overnight chaperones.
Okay.
And we'd like to have 4 overnight chaperones a night. We will go down to 3, but we need to have at least 1 female or 1 male,
Okay.
because we serve both men
Sure.
and women there. So.
Absolutely.
And if you can't do a full week, if you just want to take maybe 2 or 3 days, that's fine as well.
Absolutely. Okay. So they can come in, they can do that, and I think that's a great way to look at it. And so we're looking at a minimum of 8 people for a few hours in the evening, and then possibly in the overnight. What about from a situation of, we talked about your demographic that you're serving. Are families involved? Are you seeing families come and check into the doors?
So unfortunately, we can't house families.
Okay.
Given the fact that there's not a way, the churches that we have been in the past, there's just not a way to separate families from adults.
Okay.
Or children from the adults and so forth. So no, we don't have that. Our dream, our long-term goal, if we could do this, would be to have a shelter large enough that we could indeed do that and separate,
A permanent facility.
permanent
Okay.
brick and mortar facility
In Livingston County?
in
Yeah.
Livingston
Okay.
County, preferably on the corridor between Howell and Brighton due to the new LETS transportation plan and the fact that there'll be service,
Okay, so somewhere, there's that bloodline, right, of Grand River between Brighton and, so somewhere in between there.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. All right. Closing comments. Tell me, this is phenomenal, guys, of what you guys are
Yeah.
doing. It's
Thank you.
obviously it's much needed. There's a huge opportunity for our community, right? I think that you guys are just scratching the surface. I have to praise you, Pastor Reed, of stepping up Chilson Hills, right? Of a permanent. Now we know, right, where things are at. That's a
Yeah,
big deal, right?
yeah.
It's hard enough to step up and say, raise my hand. I need help, right? I think that's hard for anybody to do. But then it's like, okay, well, where are we going to be this week or this month or right now? It's like, okay, we have a spot,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And Diane, it's phenomenal for you to be able to say, okay, we're going to lead here. We know where we're going, what we're going to be doing, and taking the reins of that. So I can't praise you guys enough. I think what you're doing is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I want our community to step up. Now's our time, right? We're getting ready to ramp things up, and here it comes December, and don't just think of, I know Christmas giving and all these, we start to think of those things, but now's the time to start lining these things up. I challenge other businesses to say, okay, we want to take a week, we're going to take a day, we're going to do these things. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for that. Financially, right? If there's a time to give, I know that we talk a lot with our clients, and there's a lot of opportunity for those out there. Folks, if you're over 70 and a half, there's a way that you can give to these organizations and receive a huge tax benefit on top of a tax. So there's things out there that we do with our clients, and and again, I won't you get it financially, but there's things that you can do for folks that are above age 70 and a half that you can get a tax deduction that you were not getting before, in ways of doing that. So financially we can give back. What other ways, if we have, what resources other than our time and our money can we help? I want to close with this. How else can we help you other than time and money to really see you guys thrive in this scenario?
Well, I think first and foremost, prayer.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Prayer for the network, for our guests, for the volunteers. Continuing the awareness out there that there is a need, a significant need here. There are some opportunities for donations of supplies and that type of thing, and we're putting a wish list together right now that we will put onto our website.
Okay, so we
in
can
the
check that out
coming
online.
weeks.
Okay.
But that would be
Sure.
wonderful.
We would just say keep talking to people too, particularly community leaders too, and county leaders about this and about the need of it. I think that there's a lot of questions. Anytime you talk about having a shelter for people, there's a lot of stigma that's attached to it. I think one thing we've realized is been really important, and it's just completely changed just blown me away, is how many people in their life, really a majority of people, find themselves homeless. Nationwide, they find themselves homeless at some point. At least they find themselves in transition, in a place where they don't have a place to stay. And so the difference is that the people that do find a place to stay oftentimes either have a network or they have a support.
Yes.
They have a support structure. And because some of these people that would come to us don't have that support network, our organization is standing in the gap to help them out. And so I think if for anyone who can just join this effort, there's really nothing else like this. There's nothing else like this in all of Livingston County.
Agreed.
Where you get all these churches and all organizations focused on one endeavor, one effort together for a period of time. There's nothing else like it. And so get involved in it. There's really no reason not to, is my thought.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming in. One last time, give out the contact information for everybody out there listening, please.
So the website is livingstonswn.org.
All right.
And the legal name is Severe Weather Network, Livingston County.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. I look forward to
Thank
hearing
you.
more success stories from you.
Well, thank you, Mike, for this
Thanks.
opportunity.